Welcome back, it is Movie News Day. Later this evening we get the first full trailer for Dragon Ball Super Broly and I'm so excited. I anticipate it being absolutely phenomenal, but for now V-Jump has leaked and we have our first high quality look at our brand new Broly alongside the redesign of Paragus. We did actually first see Broly the other day when a small preview of a sticker collection popped up on the official website, revealing the new design in pretty much the lowest quality possible. My instinctive reaction was that while the design seemed cool from what I could see, I wasn't really feeling the colours. It felt like there was way too much of the same luminescent green across the entire design. It didn't feel balanced, and it kind of reminded me of the awful colour choices we've seen Broly have in the Heroes commercials. I was really hoping for something a little more subdued. I decided to hold off on a video though until higher quality images came out, and thank God I did because my initial reaction was totally misguided. At an event in Japan the other day, they had this brand new Broly design as a massive cardboard cutout, and we finally got to see him in his full glory. Now with V-Jump, it's easy to see that that original image was just really blown out and weirdly saturated because actually the colours are fine. In fact, both Broly and Paragus have pretty robust themes going on. I know a lot of people are a bit turned off by all these greens, purples and pinks, but actually this is just following very basic complementary colour theory. Green and purple complement one another. Pull up Adobe's handy colour tool and you can see that for yourself. Of course, red, off-white and green, much like the original, are also possible, but only under a very different type of green. Both colour palettes are perfectly viable, so whatever you prefer is a 100% acceptable opinion to have. I'm personally quite a big fan of both. In isolation, I can absolutely go either way, but colour design doesn't work in isolation. A character's colour palette has to fit with the art design of the entire movie, the colours of the location, other characters. It's one big puzzle that has to come together as a whole. This current palette fits the icy setting perfectly, while the old choices, though great for their locations and overall design, just don't work with what we currently have. So do keep that in mind when weighing up your own opinions. There's definitely much more to this conversation than just comparing two colour palettes on their own. With that out of the way, let's check out the actual designs, the shapes, the line work, the shading. This is our first look at a truly jacked character, something you know I was very curious to see Shintani handle, and oh boy, he has absolutely nailed it. With muscly characters, it is incredibly easy to fall into stiff, awkward construction because not only are you trying to convey heft, but you've also got to actually detail the musculature in a convincing way. With Yamamuro's most recent Broly design, you can see that done unsuccessfully. Yes, he looks hefty, but he also doesn't look like something that can realistically move. The muscles are segmented, the line work never breaks, and each curve is typically made up of several angles. This is the type of thing that not only looks uncomfortable as an illustration, it's also a nightmare as far as animation goes, and that's what I mean when I say something is not animation friendly. With Shintani's designs, he's avoided pretty much all of these pitfalls while also maintaining that huge Dragon Ball look that I know a lot of people were kind of worried was going to vanish with these lucid designs. I hope now that this design is out, that puts many of those concerns to rest forever. As you can see, each muscle is defined by a genuine curve, whether it's the biceps, the shoulders, or the abs, and to avoid any stiffness, there are deliberate breaks in the line work. The muscles don't look like they're stapled on top of an underlying body. These feel like muscles packed and pushing against skin. That's how the body works. There's none of that action figure syndrome that's quite common in Dragon Ball designs across any era. Depth is added through varying line weight, soft shading, and convincing shapes. It takes so much knowledge and skill to be able to pull this off. It really doesn't surprise me that Toriyama picked Shintani based on his understanding of anatomy. Even the silhouette design, the importance of which we touched on for Ultra Instinct's reveal, is such an improvement. Moving on and looking at the hair, it follows a very similar philosophy. It's all about naturalistic, free-flowing shapes, something that I pointed out during the poster reveal with both Goku and Vegeta. For a long time now, we've been looking at overly defined, very rigid shapes, Lego hair for lack of a better term. I celebrated the return of fluffy pillow hair, and that's clearly a consistent approach across every character. This looks like it could billow in the wind, and I love that the shading is pretty minimal. It's more detailed than Maeda's old designs. It actually feels like an evolution of Buu era hair, but it has that freedom of movement from that era that I absolutely adore. Before I touch on the face, I do just want to point out the pelt, particularly the way it's tied. Having the underside of the pelt shown in the knot is not only wonderful attention to detail, it's a fantastic design choice because it really helps break up all of that green. Moving on, Broly's face then. This is our first proper close-up of a character's expressive face from a design sheet, and I'm kind of blown away. Curved eyebrows are back. Intense line work around the eyes and nose is back. We finally have expression in Dragon Ball again. Broly looks terrifying. This reminds me so much of those incredible expressions from Toriyama's manga, particularly in the Saiyan and Frieza arc where he wasn't afraid to really exaggerate features to convey emotion. I love the way the depth of the face is conveyed here. It is so unconventional for Dragon Ball. Rather than use indented cheek shading, something that really helps Yamamuro and Maeda's designs for example, Shintani's instead opted to define the jaw, shading along the creases to imply volume, and you can see that the scar on his cheek actually changes angles between the different planes of the face. I'm really impressed by that approach. It's such a silly small detail, but it does make a world of difference. Unfortunately, I do have to address the elephant in the room, and that is of course the nose. You guys know just how much I despise nonsensical noses, and we've been plagued by them for so long. This is of course not a gaping hole into another dimension, but it also doesn't make any sense either. The shading kind of juts out from the middle of the underside of the nose and hangs over the mouth. It reminds me a lot of Shuichiro Manabe's take on things in Super, but just kind of uglier. I don't know if it was just a mistake, because if you actually move the tip of the nose down by like the tiniest fraction, it's absolutely fine. We've seen his front-on noses for Vegeta and Piccolo, and those look great, so it's a bit of a strange outlier. Hopefully the trailer later tonight puts things to rest. It's obviously a very tiny, absolutely minuscule issue, but I would be a total hypocrite to gloss over it. Back to the endless lists of positives, let's take a look at Broly's base form and Paragus. A lot of the traits are things I've already mentioned: the carefully considered line weight, the broken up line work, and loosely defined muscles. It has a nice and naturalistic posture, and that's just what you want from a design sheet. Facially, I think it's very clear that Shintani's not particularly interested in changing up Toriyama's modern approach. Much like you see in his recent works, things like Dragon Ball Minus and various character designs, Toriyama's big on quite straight eyebrows with large, almost rounded eyes beneath. Something I'm just over the moon by, and it's again another very consistent trait about Shintani's design so far. There's no shading on the base black hair. Even Yamamuro is moving away from that towards the end of Super, so it's not like this is a particularly groundbreaking revelation, but it's nice to see all the same. Not really an animation thought, but it's worth pointing out that Broly's wearing the old Frieza Army shoes in this design, whereas Old Man Paragus and the other Broly have the new Frieza Army outfit. We know the film is apparently dealing with different eras, so that's probably worth thinking about as far as getting to know some juicy details out of the story before we know anything for real. Looking at Paragus then, he is certainly very different from his original design. Back in the day, he was kind of a mix between Wolverine with that hair and those sideburns and a adult film star with that moustache. Now he's looking like Big Boss at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4 with a lovely pink dress, and I am so about that. This is such a bizarre, wacky Toriyama design. It has all of the traits of his recent work, and much like Broly's base form, Shintani's kept that straight eyebrow, round eye thing that's just modern Toriyama all over. You know what my favourite thing is though, and it's such a tiny detail that you might think I'm crazy, but if you take a close look, Paragus does in fact have a tail. Tails are great, don't get me wrong, but it's the way Paragus's dress reacts to that tail that really gets me going. You can see Shintani's drawn that slight bulge at the base of the tail, and the dress is ever so slightly pushed out where it's resting against it. That attention to detail is just so good. I love seeing the way clothing reacts to the body it's on. I don't know if this was in Toriyama's own design before Shintani adapted it, but if not, it's just another one of those tiny little things that really helps you see why Toriyama was so taken with his work. I'm honestly so taken by how this film is turning out. In that original sticker set I mentioned at the start of the video, you can also see Super Saiyan God and Bulma, so I'm absolutely dying to see their sheets too. Hopefully if they're not in the movie trailer later, we'll at least see them in an upcoming Jump magazine. We actually got to see our first bit of promo art under Shintani's designs today too. I'm almost certain this was drawn by one of the nameless promo artists they employ because 1, I don't see Shintani drawing art for Dragon Ball Canal Splash, and 2, it doesn't really have his traits. The ears seem very different. Regardless, it's exciting to see because this is probably the first of many like this as we begin to transition from Yamamuro to Shintani across the Dragon Ball brand as a whole. This is such a classic Goku. I mentioned this in my Heroes video, but in recent years we've moved away from large-eyed Goku with a small nose and mouth tucked in there into this more human feature placement with smaller eyes and evenly spaced features. The thing is, that stops it feeling like classic Toriyama Dragon Ball. If you happen to be at Kamehacon, you may have attended Olympia's art panel where she spoke about how drawing Dragon Ball can be very difficult because slipping away from certain details like that can make a big impact on how perceivably Toriyama your work ends up looking. This is so refreshing to see, and I cannot wait to see more. Even Shenlong in the background is rocking his classic Dragon Ball look. We're really at the beginning of a new era for Dragon Ball, and so far it really is just looking absolutely incredible. Later this evening, we will be seeing our first proper Dragon Ball Super Broly trailer. We will actually get to see what this film looks like beyond that initial uncorrected teaser. I will of course be covering that as soon as I can, trying to work out who's on the film, alongside giving my general thoughts on the visuals. But until then, I hope you found this video informative. I'm seeing a lot more resounding support for the new designs these days, so hopefully this helped you understand why they're so appealing. And if you already knew why, then I hope you just enjoyed hearing my thoughts. As always, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to rate the video, subscribe if you're new, and do keep an eye out for my breakdown of that trailer. That is all for now. I will see you next time.